Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of Matplotlib PyPlot. In my previous videos, I have already discussed about line charts and scatter charts. In this video, I will specifically discuss about bar charts and customization of charts. Now let's get started with bar function or bar chart. A bar graph or bar chart is a graphical representation of data using bars of different height or width. A bar chart can be drawn vertically or horizontally using rectangle bars of different height or width. In order to create bar chart in Python, we can use PyPlot's bar function. This is the basic syntax of the bar function. Now let us try to understand the bar function from practical perspective. In order to generate bar graph, we will import the Matplotlib library and also we will assign an alias name to that particular library. To generate a basic bar graph, we will need two axes, that is x-axis and y-axis, and we need to pass that axis as a parameter to the particular bar function. In this example, I will try to plot roll number versus marks data, where in x-axis I will plot all the roll numbers of the students and in y-axis I will plot the marks. As of now, I am taking 5 elements. In y-axis also I will do the same. I will assign the marks for the corresponding roll numbers. Now let us try to generate the bar graph. So in order to generate the bar graph, I will use the alias name and I will use the bar function. Here I will pass the two parameters, that is x-axis and y-axis. And in the next line I will call the show function in order to display the graph. Now let us try to execute this code. So as soon as the code gets executed, you can see I get my graph generated. Here in x-axis you can see these are the roll numbers of the students and these are the marks. Roll number 1 got 20, roll number 2 got 30, roll number 3 got 12, something like that, and roll number 4 got near about 15, 16, and roll number 5 got, as you can see, above 40. So this was all about the basics of the bar function. Now let us try to play with this rectangle bars. Now let us try to set a custom width of a bar graph. So in order to set a custom width of a bar graph, we have to use the width parameter along with the x-axis and y-axis. By default, the width is 0.8 units and it always accepts a floating value. Now let us try to explore the width parameter practically. Before exploring the width parameter, first we will try to execute this code and we will observe the graph. After that, we will give the width parameter and we will observe the graph once again. As you can see, this is the graph with the default width. Now let us try to generate the graph with a custom width. So in order to set a custom width, I will pass the width parameter and I will set the value. As of now, I will set the value as 0.2. Now let us try to execute this code. As you can see, there is a drastic change in the width of the bars. So this way we can play with the width of the bars in a bar chart. Now let us try to understand how we can set the colors of a bar chart. So in order to set the colors of a bar chart, we will pass one more value, that is color, along with the x-axis and y-axis, and we will set the color code. The color codes are basically same to what I have shown in my previous videos. Now let us try to change the color of the bar graph. So in order to change the color, I will pass the color parameter along with the color code. Let's say I want to change the color to as green. Now let us execute this code. So as soon as I execute this code, we can observe that the colors of the bars got changed to green. So this way we can play around with the colors. So this was all about customizing the bar chart with weight parameter and the color parameter. Now let us try to create multiple bar charts using PyPlot. Before creating multiple bar charts, there are a few points to ponder. The first point says decide number of x points. Firstly, we need to determine the number of x points, that is, how many number of x points we will need in our graph. For this, we need to calculate the number of entries in the range being plotted. Let's say we are plotting two sequences A and B. So the length of sequences A and B being plotted will determine the number of x points in our case. We can also create the sequence of the length of A and B using the range function or by using the numpy.arrange function. The second point, which says decide the thickness of each bar and accordingly adjust x points and x-axis. So if we want to plot two bars per x-axis, then carefully think of the thickness of each bar. Say we want the thickness of each bar as 0.3. Then for first range, keep it as x, and for the second range, make the x point as x plus 0.3. The third point says give different color to different data ranges. So in order to represent the data in a beautiful manner, it is recommended to use different colors for individual bars. the next point which says the width argument remains the same for all the ranges being plotted. And the last but not the least is plot using bar for each range separately. That is, for each bar a separate bar function will be called. So this were the concepts from theoretical perspective. Now let us try to understand the concepts from practical perspective. In our code, we have already imported the Matplotlib library as well as the NumPy library, and we have created two lists of x-axis and y-axis. In the x-axis, we are storing values from 1 to 5, and in y-axis, we are storing 5 elements. So in order to create multiple bar graph, what we will do is we will increment the x-axis value and we will assign a y-axis list so that we can map accordingly. This is our x-axis and y-axis. Now let us try to create another list, that is y2, for the other graph. This x1 and y1 will be used to represent the first bar, and x2 and y2 will be used to represent the other bar graph. Now we will try to create the data element of x2 using the x1 list. The reason why I have converted this x1 list to array, this is because I need to perform mathematical operation using the elements of the list. So this was all about my dataset. Now let us try to generate the graph. So in x-axis I will pass x1, and in y-axis I will pass y1, and I will set the width as 0.2 as of now and color as green. For the second bar, what I will do is I will pass the x2 axis and I will pass the y2, and I will set the width as 0.2 and color as blue. Here what I will do is, here I will increment the value of x-axis with 0.2. In the second function, what it will do, it will initiate the bar from the point where the first bar has ended. That is, for every x value, it will increment the value with 0.2. So in that way, the bars won't get overlapped. Now let us try to execute this code and understand it better. So as soon as I execute this code, you can see I got a multiple bar chart. So here we can see we got our green and blue colored bars. I hope the concept to create multiple bar chart is clear. Let us try to learn how we can create horizontal bar charts. The horizontal bar charts look something like this. So to create the horizontal bar chart, we will use the bar each function. Now let us try to learn and execute this function. So here I already have my x-axis and y-axis value. So I will directly pass the x and y-axis value to the bar each function. I will use the alias name and I will call the bar each function. And here I will pass the x-axis and y-axis value. Now let us execute this code. So as soon as I execute this code, we can see that we got a graphical representation with horizontal bars. So this was all about bar charts. Now let us try to learn how we can customize the plots. Before moving ahead, let us try to understand some of the basic terminologies related to a chart. So this is basically the title of the chart. Here what you can see, and this is the these are the markers, and these are the labels of x-axis and y-axis, and those sort of color representation which represent a particular section are basically the legends, and those numerical values that you can see over x-axis are basically the ticks. So this is the basic anatomy of a chart. Now let us try to add the title to a chart. So in order to add the title to a chart, we will directly use the plt alias name and we will call the title function, and here we will pass our string. As of now, let's set the title is ABC. As I execute this code, we can see we got the output with the title. So this was all about title. Now let us try to set the x limits and y limits. So in order to set the x limits and y limits, we have to follow basic syntax. That is, we have to use the PyPlot along with the xlim and ylim function. It will support two parameters, that is the minimum value of x limit and the maximum value of x limit. And for the y-axis it goes the same. It will support minimum value of y limit and maximum value of y limit. Now let us try to understand this from practical perspective. Before calling the function xlim and ylim, let us try to execute this code and understand what these limits are. If we execute this code, we can see our range in x-axis starts from 0 and it goes to 40. And for y-axis it starts from 0 and it goes to 5. let's say for x-axis I want the range to start from 0 to 55, and for y-axis I want the range to start from 0 to 30. So in that case I have to pass the xlim and ylim along with the minimum and maximum value. So here the minimum value is 0 and the maximum value up to which the x-axis would extend is 55, and for this case the minimum value is 0 once again, and the maximum value up to which the y-axis would extend is 30. Now let us pass those parameters. So we will use the alias name and we will call the xlim function. Here we will pass the minimum value and the maximum value. For x-axis we will keep the maximum value as 55, and for y-axis we will call the ylim function and we will pass the minimum value as 0 and we will pass the maximum value as 30. So let us execute this code. So this is the output we can see. Our range starts from 0 to 50 for x-axis, and for y-axis it starts from 0 and ends at 30. I hope the concept of xlim and ylim is clear. Now let us move ahead. So we can also play around with the ticks of the axis. So in order to play around with the ticks of the axis, we'll use the xticks and yticks function. So if we want to manipulate the ticks of x-axis, we'll use the xticks function, and if we want to manipulate the ticks of y-axis, we have to use the yticks function. So both the ticks accepts two kind of parameters, that is xticks and the labels, which are to be passed or which are to be mapped with those ticks, and for y-axis also it will accept the yticks along with the labels, which are to be mapped with the y-axis. Now let us try to understand this practically. So in order to understand the xticks and yticks function, let us execute this code and let us go through the ticks which are already there in this particular bar. So we can see here we have the ticks as 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now let's see if I want to replace 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 with A, B, C, D, E. So that can be done using the xticks function. For the yticks also we have to use the yticks function. As of now I will change the ticks of the x-axis. So in order to change the ticks of the axis, I will use the alias name and I will call the xticks function, and I will pass the existing ticks along with the new ticks. Let's say A, B. Now let us try to execute this code and understand it better. So as soon as I execute this code, we can see our existing ticks got replaced with A, B, C, D and E. So this way we can play around with the ticks of PyPlot. The same syntax will be also followed by y-axis. So if you need to change or replace the ticks of y-axis, we will simply call the yticks. We'll pass the existing ticks as the first parameter and we'll pass the new ticks as the second parameter. I hope the concepts of ticks are clear. Let us move ahead. The next function that we have is basically the legend. So we can also set the legend of a graph as per our choice. So if we need to set the label of a particular legend, what we have to do is we have to pass the label in the existing graph generating function. It can be plot, scatter or bar. After that we have to call the label function and we have to assign the location. So the location can either be numeric or it can be of string type. So for numeric values we have to use 1 for upper right position, and for string value we have to use upper right. And for numeric value 2 we will have the location as upper left. For numeric value 3 we will have the position as lower left, and for numeric value 4 we will have the position as lower right. So these are the numeric values and these are the string values. So basically 4 type of positions are supported by legends. Now let us try to execute this code and understand it. Let's say as of now I want the legend to be labeled as R1. So I will simply pass the label function and I will call it as R1. And here I will use the alias name and I will call the legend function. And I will set the location as, and I will use the LOC parameter and I will set the location as, let's say, upper right. Now let us try to execute this code. So as soon as I execute this code, we can see we got our legend in the upper right position. Now let's see if I need to change the position to upper left. We will simply pass the position as upper left. Let us try to execute this code. I got my legend displayed in the upper left of the bar chart. So it is always to be noted that by default the legend gets generated in the upper right corner of the bar chart. So this was some of the basic terminologies related to plot and customizing the plot. Now let us try to learn how we can save the plot. So in order to save the plot, we have to use the savefig function. And we have to pass the path, either it can be relative or absolute, or we can directly pass the file name. So if we directly pass the file name, it will be stored in the same directory. So let us try to understand this from practical perspective. So here is the code which helps us to generate a graph. So let's say if I need to save the graph automatically as soon as the code gets executed, for that I have to use the savefig function. And I have to call the savefig function before show. So here we will pass our absolute path or relative path, whatever it is. So there are many popular file formats which are supported by the savefig function, like PDF, PNG, EPS, etc. As of now, I want to save the graph in a PDF format. I will name the graph as testing.pdf. Now let us try to execute this code. Now let us check our directory if our testing.pdf is generated or not. So we can check our directory that our file testing.pdf has been generated. This is how the PDF file looks like. So this was all about bar charts and customizing plot. We will learn about the upcoming modules of Matplotlib in my next video.